Hi, we're here with Phil McClendon and Sean McNamara from Garmin, and we're going to talk about wearable technology and where it fits in with COVID-19 analytics. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
So, I see you guys have a few partnerships with universities and other schools and things like that. Can you walk me through what some of those plans are?
Yeah, absolutely. So Garmin, through a variety of different developer programs that we offer, we enable partners like the researchers that you're referencing to be able to utilize Garmin Health and wellness data when our consumers consent to participate in those studies. And so they're taking the objective physiological signals that are being generated from these devices and applying them to, in this case, some of the COVID-19 studies you're talking about.
And I remember you were working with Duke and a few others. How were the universities selected? Did they approach you? You approached them? How did it work out?
Yeah, they approached us, and obviously this kind of came fast and furious, and the majority of researchers have come to us in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks. And really the studies across the board have a lot of commonalities between them. But what they're looking to get at is obviously broad health data that's being generated from wearable devices. And I think there's a few things that are beneficial from wearable devices for researchers. One is that they're essentially ubiquitous, right? There are tens or hundreds of millions of individuals globally wearing these devices, generating health and wellness data. And then they're also personalized, right? So wearables allow us to compare you to you as opposed to you to the general population. And so that's extremely beneficial to scale up some of the COVID-19 studies that they're running.
So is wearable data an underappreciated asset at this point?
I don't know if it's an underappreciated asset. I do think it's an important asset, and I think we'll continue to learn more as the research studies progress. Wearable devices have been used in research studies for many years, and I think recently they've started to gain a lot more attention as far as potentially some of the benefits for infectious diseases.
So I guess what does Garmin get out of this in terms of participating?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So one of our goals and one of our main mission statements on the Garmin Health side is to enable Garmin consumers to live healthier lives. And we believe through a variety of different collaborations that we have with some of these research institutions that we're enabling not only our consumers, but the general population to do so. We think this is, as far as what the research tells us, this is something that can benefit not only you, your family, but also potentially greater benefit to society. And so if we have the capabilities to support some of those studies, we want to do that. And so it's in our best interest to offer this up to our consumers. If they're interested in participating, they can consent to share their data. And we're hopeful that some of these, will be beneficial for tracking or identifying or monitoring a variety of diseases.
So I guess what's the consumer interest in this? Like what kind of uptake have you seen? Like I know, Fitbit has a unit that focuses on, enterprise healthcare sort of things. I know there are some other ventures going on. What's the consumer benefit to this?
So the consumer benefit of monitoring all this data and tracking all of that, is that the question?
Yeah, basically, consumers have to obviously opt in and give permission. What do you think's in it for them? I mean, is it a greater good? Is it more, they hope to get some data out of it? And what kind of uptake are you seeing basically?
So, I mean, in general, the data that's provided by our watches really helps customers understand their body a lot better. And that's one of the key driving things that we found that consumers tell us that they want from these wearable devices is, it's comfortable to wear. And because we've got long battery life and the features we give them, they want to wear it more. And so the richness of the data that tells them about their state of their body, so they can see how their resting heart rate is changing, pulse ox, respiration, and so forth, they learn a lot more about what their baseline is. And so then they're able to identify and be able to flag and talk to their care provider about, hey, I'm off of my baseline. And so we find that people really are drawn to that. there's obviously all the metrics around tracking their activity and getting more active. But really, these health metrics, we're seeing quite an increase in people wanting to pay attention to that, especially as people become more concerned about the pandemic and illness in general.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the body battery metric that you guys have. I actually feel like I'm actually a phone at some point where I can feel myself getting low and basically crashing. So walk me through the partnerships. Basically, are these ongoing studies? Are these studies that, they have a limited time focused on COVID? Or do you see this as like a, kind of longer term study, or is it broken up into parts?
Yeah, I would say the majority of the studies that we're working on are open-ended, right? And so what they're trying to do right now is scale up their user bases, continue to gather more data so that they can refine their algorithms. Not all of the studies are the same. Some are building out monitoring platforms to be able to track your loved ones' physiological metrics and things like that. But for the larger ones that you're referencing, the Duke and the Script study, those are longer term. Those will likely to continue for the next months and potentially years as they continue to gather more data and hopefully improve the algorithms they're developing.
So as far as, the data that's been, given so far, are there any data points that have stood out for COVID at this point?
There's a few commonalities between all the studies, and the physiological metrics, at least from wearable devices, are in the same way. I think the key metrics that we see researchers utilizing are resting heart rate, sleep, activity, and then pulse ox as well, which is delivered on Garmin devices. And so what the researchers are evaluating are elevations in resting heart rate, decreases in activity, increases in total sleep time, and then if there's some type of respiratory problem, a decrease in your blood oxygenation.
Okay, so the pulse ox metric is a big one for them, I assume.
Yes, and not all wearables provide SpO2 in the device, which is somewhat unique to Garmin devices, but yes, that is definitely something that they're also including and looking at this time.
Are all Garmin devices eligible for this participation?
Assuming they meet the thresholds from a data standpoint, so not all Garmin devices have SpO2, but I will say at this point, the majority of Garmin devices offer kind of the key metrics that they're looking at being heart rate, sleep, and activity. So the majority of our wearable product line offers those metrics.
Okay. Do you see wearables and the data they provide being a bigger part of the, I guess, post-pandemic workforce, or, how do you see consumers using this going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a balance between the consumer world and maybe some of the health applications for the data. So we have a Garmin Health team. We've been participating in the health and wellness market for years now, and we believe there are broad applications across that market to hopefully improve people's health, be able to help researchers with a variety of different studies that they're utilizing. And also offer significant improvements to kind of the remote monitoring experience that's delivered to a variety of different patient populations today. But I think it's a balance between that and the consumer world. People love these devices for a variety of different reasons, and we really need to strike a balance between providing consumer utility and value in that space, while also continuing to deliver important health metrics to a variety of different institutions that we work with.
Phil, what does the Garmin, I guess, prototypical consumer look like in terms of, I know a lot of athletes use Garmin for sure. I guess in terms of data, how do you align the customer profile with the sort of data a researcher would get?
Sure. So, as you indicated, we have an extremely wide wearable portfolio. So we have product lines that are from folks that are just trying to get a little bit more active, that are very basic and don't include heart rate, up through what we call smart activity trackers, to smart watches, to products for athletes and adventurers. So we have an incredibly broad target market that those different pieces take a look at. And one of the key underpinnings is on those devices that have heart rate and so forth, we share a baseline of features similar to what Sean was talking about. And we found that, even though someone is an athlete or an adventurer, they also have some of the similar interests and needs about monitoring their basic health. And so we found that sort of commonality across the board, across the different product lines, even though there's additional utility they may get from the wearable for those other activities. And so that's sort of the prototypical customer being interested in their health, and like I said about their baseline is something that we see common across there. But beyond that, the wearable use cases become very broad.
Do you see a feature like pulse ox becoming a pivotal feature in terms of? I'll be honest with you. I mean, I have a Phoenix, and I didn't even know what the pulse ox was until this. But now I make sure I check it out just for giggles. Do you see that as a feature that'll be more, I guess, required from wearable folks at this point?
Well, I think it's certainly something that's very interesting to people, particularly within this, this condition of pandemic and people reading that pulse oximetry may tell them something. So I think that that's going to drive a lot of interest, and it's something that, like Sean said, we have across many of our different devices. We find that it's really useful for use cases for our adventurers in getting acclimated to altitude and altitude training, but then for our general wellness customers around. We hear anecdotes from folks who have asthma. We have folks who are, concerned around a variety of different respiratory conditions where they want to use this data to help them learn better about themselves. These aren't medical devices, but it helps them understand better where they're at and gives them some cues that they may want to check with their primary care provider about.
What other health issues do you see, future research on, or what are the other projects you have going on with, on the health front with researchers?
Yeah, we have a variety of different studies that we're participating in, and it's in the same way where we are enabling researchers to take consumer devices and consumer data when the users consent to share it and apply it to whatever specific condition they're looking to track. And some of the major studies, main studies I should say, that we're participating in there usually are around heart conditions, around type 2 diabetes, our oncology studies, both pre and post-op, and what activity can do to hopefully improve outcomes for some of those treatments. Those are typically the three conditions that we're participating in from a study standpoint.
Okay. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Any final words you want to throw in?
I don't think so. Not for me.
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Cool. Thanks, Norm.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
You too.